Let's ask some questions about the Pacers veterans. Pascal Siakam, TJ McConnell, Tony Bradley. How much can Siakam handle as the lead ball handler this year? What can TJ McConnell do to fight off aging? And Tony Bradley, is he going to make the team? We'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, the beginning of about a week of Locked On Pacers episodes that are all pre-recorded. I'm out of town on vacation, and I'm doing one of my favorite off-season episodes, the Veteran Questions episode. This started 3 years ago, actually. I started doing this because I wanted to talk about Daniel Theis very specifically at the time, and I couldn't find a way to do it. And I said, I just want to ask some questions about his season, and I've done it every year since. Every summer, rightly, to be clear, everyone focuses on the young guys who could get better and have the most variance, and could they step into this role or that role? And the veterans just become like stable, forgotten pillars. And that's good. That's what they are. That's what they've been for the Pacers in the case of the three guys we're talking about today. But they deserve to be discussed and talked about under the context of what it could mean for the Pacers season next year. The interesting thing about the Pacers with their veterans is they lose Miles Turner. Who knows about James Johnson? Thomas Bryant headed somewhere else. Vets are going away, right? They only have 3 players right now under contract, as of me talking again, hello from the past, that have more than 5 years of NBA experience. And that is Pascal Siakam, TJ McConnell, and Tony Bradley. Thus, they are the focuses today. Let us begin with Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam is the subject of segment 1 today. And my question that I've typed about Pascal Siakam is, what does this look like as a number 1 option, right? He has always been like, I actually likened him in a playoff article to like a star who is also a glue guy, right? He makes everything around him work by just being a 4 of a certain size and carrying a certain skill set with him onto the floor and pairing well with Haliburton and paired well with Turner. He can score when he needs to score. You know, we'll talk about this. They had a great record when he scored or took X number of shots, and he got way better as a defender last year, and like all this stuff that makes Pascal Siakam so valuable for the Pacers. He's very good. But what he is not is a number 1 option, right? He was very, very, very rarely asked to like, yep, go initiate, go get a bucket, go do this or that. And there were some games where that was the best course of action for the Pacers for one reason or another, but it was very infrequent. And next year it's going to be very frequent. He will be their most reliable scorer on several situations and possessions next year, and probably the guy they would turn to in the final, possessions of quarters, games, whatever. In the like pattern of Pascal Siakam's career, and this is mainly the case with Toronto because they went through cycles of like they have DeRozan and Lowry with Siakam, and then they have Kawhi in there, and then they don't have Kawhi, but they still have Lowry and VanVleet, and then just VanVleet. Like they went through these periods where and OG Anunoby's usage went down and up. Siakam's role really fluctuated, where there were times when he was clearly the 3rd best player on the team, and his true shooting percentage was really high, but his usage was in the low 20s. And then there were times where he was the best player on the Raptors for several years, and his usage was quite high, and his true shooting percentage was lower, like in 1 or 2 seasons below league average. And so some of his, like in the past, highest usage seasons, and this is a question we're asking about him this year, what can he look like carrying a huge load for the Pacers, did not come with great efficiency. It was fine. It was never bad, but not great, right? Now, there's a difference. He's better now, right? He has really worked on his shot. The Pacers shot doctor system has helped him get better as a 3-point shooter. And last year, specifically, another stat I'd bring up that would be important to knowing how he could look as a number 1 option is in the 9 games Tyrese Haliburton didn't play, Pascal Siakam had a 65.2% true shooting percentage. That is excellent. That's fantastic, right? Now, the question to expand on that is, can he do it for a full season? Because he is a better player now. He's a more refined palate. He worked on different parts of his game. But without Haliburton, his usage would go up. And the past says over a full season, that would bring his efficiency down, even though it didn't in a small 9-game sample last year, right? And then the follow-up part of that is, what does that mean? A bigger role for Siakam, more shots, more asks of him to pass, more whatever. what does that mean for the whole Pacers offense, right? Can they actually function effectively as a team if he is the guy being asked to do all these things, right? I don't think he's a fine passer. I don't think he's a bad passer, but I don't think of him as like, oh my gosh, he's diming guys up and setting them up every play. They'll probably need guards to do that, but then the ball's not in Siakam's hands, and he'll be their best scoring option next season, most likely. So what is the right balance of figuring that out? Will he actually even be the guy with the highest usage? The guy with the highest usage last year in those games that Haliburton didn't play was actually Bennedict Mathurin at almost 25%, right? Is he the guy who's going to be absorbing all these touches, all these shots, and then Siakam's not actually ever the first option? And then this question is a little different, but what would this look like for a full season? Both years, Siakam has been with the Pacers, the half season 2 years ago and the full season last year. He has hovered right around 24% usage and right around 60% true shooting. So much so that even in the 9 games Haliburton missed last year, his usage rate was around 24%, and his true shooting percentage was actually higher. Like, he has been very rigid, regardless of who is around him, Haliburton or not, in what is asked of him and how often he's willing to shoot and attack and all those things. He's going to have to do more next year, but I wonder if that is sort of the baseline to set is he's going to be that guy, right? Even if he's the number one option. And it's up to the rest of the team to kind of find balance and ability to score with him doing that. Like, if he expands beyond that, it doesn't actually help the Pacers. And if he does less than that, it certainly doesn't help the Pacers. So he's going to be that guy. And if he is that guy, what does everybody else have to do? As a team, the Pacers had a 119 offensive rating in games that Haliburton didn't play when Siakam was on the floor. That's pretty good, right? That's very good, honestly. Sniffing their team-wide usual level. Again, this is 9 games, tiny sample. So a lot of these numbers are in minuscule opportunities, but they're good numbers, right? It's obviously preferable as the Pacers to be like, well, we don't know if this is good, but in the small samples, it was good. So they'll see about that. However, what does it look like? Again, what does it look like for 82 games? Because also in those 9 games with Haliburton, with Siakam off the floor, the Pacers' offensive rating was 118, which is good, right? That's close to the offensive rating with Siakam on the floor. So he had little impact in those instances. But again, this is a small sample. Intuitively, Siakam on the floor would be better than not for offense. So what does this all mean, right? Like, everybody loved to throw the stat around last year. Oh, the Pacers were, I think it was 8-3 when Siakam took 20 or more shots in a game. And like the implication there is like, he should always be taking 20 shots. And the answer to that is really, when Pascal Siakam is presented with a situation that is so favorable to him that he should take 20 shots, that usually means the Pacers are going to win because he has such a favorable matchup, right? It's the inverse order that people typically talk about. He should not just go hunt 20 shots a game. But what is it going to look like if he is the first option? How much closer to that is he getting on a night in, night out basis? He's not just a creator. Like, he'll have to be a creator for others more as a number one, but that's not his game, right? What does the speed look like for the Pacers if they're just hunting reps for Pascal Siakam? Are they playing as fast? Are they playing as juiced up? Is he taking his time getting to his shots? Is he the number one option? Is another question worth asking as you kind of dive into this. If Mathurin has a higher usage and Nembhard and McConnell are going to be the initiators, is Siakam actually the number one option? Is he the best choice to be a play finisher? Yes. Is he going to be the number one option in terms of most shots, most touches? Maybe not. And so this is all kind of my big Pascal Siakam question. And the thing about it is, it only is kind of revealing for 1 year. Because when Haliburton comes back, it doesn't really matter what Siakam's role is, but learning a little bit about how much he can take is still valuable. Like, coming off of an Achilles injury, Haliburton is going to be potentially a different player. They might need different things from Siakam. Can he handle that large of a load and expectations? Can he handle that with the efficiency that he has held with the Pacers, basically regardless of his role the last 2 years? With an improved shot and a more refined skill set, it hasn't really mattered what's gone on around him. This year, a lot has changed around Pascal Siakam. Can he parlay that into about a quarter of possessions used and 60% true shooting? If so, that's great. The Pacers' floor of offense will still be pretty solid, even though their identity will be shaken. But I think the key thing to all this is going to be his synergy with the guards. If he works well with Nembhard, if he works well with McConnell, he'll get good shots throughout games. The Pacers will be able to use him reliably. If he is such an obvious top option that the synergy with guards can't be there, teams are loading up to defend it, the Pacers can't get enough shooting or scoring elsewhere, might be a tougher year for the Pacers offensively. And it's all going to be very interesting to see how Siakam, as the number one option, plays in to all of that. Next up, TJ McConnell, one of the lesser discussed players this entire offseason for several reasons. He's turning another year older next year. Can he fight off the aging? Every player in the NBA is doing their best to do it. We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Pacers. Before we talk TJ McConnell, we got to talk about Gametime. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for the concert tickets that you want to go on sale. You lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see after all that. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. So if you wonder what your seat's going to look like, the app shows you a panoramic seat view. I used it in the Barclays Center in New York. It was spot on with their Gametime guarantee. The price you see is the price you pay, and they have your back with cancellation protection and so much more if your plans change. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. I don't know what's going on in the world of the NBA because I'm recording this several days in advance. But make your second listen a Central Division foe. Locked On Bulls, hear what's going on. They just extended their head coach, Billy Donovan, pretty recently. What's going on in the Bulls land? Pacers are going to play them 4 times this year. Let's talk about TJ McConnell. So something happened that changed correctly. It should have changed the conversation with McConnell. And that's that his playoffs was awesome. Balled out. Awesome in the finals. Won them games. Was their best player in the second half of a game 7 that they lost. Really exceptional playoffs. 2 years in a row, right? All the questions about, like, can this play style translate to the postseason have been answered with an emphatic yes. Don't have to worry about that. That's not the question for TJ McConnell. However, what I mentioned by changing the narrative is McConnell going into the playoffs, you know, his postseason performance kind of overshadowed what the narrative and talk was about him and his season. Right? 2 years ago, he was so good. 7th and 6th man of the year. His first season, double-digit scoring. His assists are going crazy. He shoots 56% of the field. That's a career high, right? He's doing all this stuff. He cannot miss his trademark shots. And last year, some obvious drop-off, right? And I think he would admit that. Turned 33 in March. So let's talk about some of those things. For example, 3rd worst field goal percentage with the Pacers was last year of his 6. And one of the 2 lower seasons was the year he hurt his wrist and then played 4 games at the end of the season. So that one almost doesn't count. So it was almost his 2nd worst field goal percentage season with the Pacers. For the first time, I think, with the Pacers, I'd have to go through year by year on this. He had a below average true shooting. The only other year that it's possible is 2021-22, which was the wrist season, right? Below average true shooting. That does not totally reflect TJ McConnell's impact, to be clear. I am not saying that his shooting percentages were down and he was bad. I'm saying they were just down from what he was. He's not a negative player at all, right? At his usage, typically being at about average efficiency, but being a plus passer, a plus probing guy, a pest on defense, and a good organizer, that's a plus player, no doubt, even with 54.7% true shooting last year. But can this all keep happening, right? Can this continue as he gets older? For example, like, think of his pet shot, right? Whatever distance you think it is. 6 feet, 12 feet, whatever. Last year, 10 to 16 feet, 45.7% last year. I think that's the 3rd worst of his career from that distance, right? From 3 to 10 feet, if you think his pet shot's a little closer. His 2nd worst season as a Pacer from that distance. The year he had the wrist injury, he shot better from that distance than he did last year, right? His on-off numbers, like net rating, McConnell on, minus off, were his worst as a Pacer. Now, some of that obviously was some bench struggles for the Pacers last year and their starters being typically quite good, and the reason that the team was quite good. However, some of the reasons that the bench was struggling and not as good as it was in past seasons was some of the stuff we're talking about with TJ McConnell and how he fits with the players around him, right? So the on-off got worse. They had to kind of tweak how they did stuff, and they figured it out. To be clear, another stat that this one was so obvious. I wanted to look it up. I should have looked it up during the season, but you could just feel this one watching him play. The percentage of shots TJ McConnell took at the rim that were blocked was almost 12%, by far a career high, like 2 or 3% higher than he's ever had before. You could feel that, right? He used to be able to create more separation or just burp it up a little bit faster. He could not do that last season, right? That wasn't part of his game in the same way it had been before. And at his height, that's not good. Again, killed it in the playoffs. He's a good player. I'm saying these things just to say and wonder, what is another year of adding age +1 to him going to look like? Second highest with the Pacers, of his time with the Pacers, of his short mid-range shots were blocked. And this year he turns 34. That's still not old. He was good at 33. He'll probably be good at 34. But what goes away, if anything, right? From 32 to 33, he got better, right? 33 is probably his best season with the Pacers. So this isn't this. He could fight off aging and be better next year than last year, right? I'm saying all these things to say it's possible that this trend continues, and that would be concerning for the Pacers. Let's talk about his age bracket, right? Or is he 34 now? Yeah, he turns 34 next season, right? There were only, last year in the entire NBA, there were only 35 players total who suited up age 34 plus, right? That is starting to get to the age where it's like, oh man, your opportunities, your ability are dwindling to the point that, teams are not as willing to keep you around without you being a good vet. And in a lot of those cases, you're not even playing that much, right? Your minutes are really decreasing. I apologize. I just cut my leg. So I keep looking down. Only 2 players, 35 or older, played in more games than TJ McConnell last year. And that's Chris Paul and Brook Lopez, right? Everyone else 35 and up was not able to play 79 like McConnell did. That's encouraging. That means he's one of the best guys of his age. That's good. If you go straight down just all the way to TJ McConnell's age, including 33 and 34-year-olds last year, add in Harrison Barnes, add in Jonas Valanciunas, add in Buddy Hield. That's it. So he's even of guys his age and older, right? Not even going up to what his age will be. He is still among the healthiest and most productive guys. That's good. That's like a who cares about fighting off aging thing. He's just a useful player, no doubt. However, that he's getting close to that age where dudes start to play less because of various reasons. Their effectiveness isn't there. They're not as prioritized by their teams, whatever it is. So TJ McConnell's question with all these stats in mind is, can he fight it off again? Can he continue to be effective? This is really the first year of that extension that he signed, I believe. It kicks in this season, and it's only partially guaranteed in the third year, and they can get out of the fourth year. It's not like actually that committal of an extension. I believe my screen is lagging because I'm trying to open my cap sheet. That's always super exciting. Hopefully that didn't ruin that portion of the podcast. Yeah, McConnell fully guaranteed for 2 more years. They really need him to at least one of those years continue to fight off any sort of aging. And 2 years ago, you wondered if something was coming for him. He wasn't playing as well, and then he was resurgent and quite good. Can he do that again going into age 34? I think that's my big question about him, because there's no doubt he's good. There's no doubt he makes those bench groups go, but he's not going to be able to play in 2 point guard groups as much. He does not ever get guarded as a shooter. If he can't probe as well, or he can't finish at the basket as well, or there's just better game plans for defending this guy because there's not as much space without Turner, or he's not playing with Haliburton as much. Like, what does this all look like for TJ McConnell? He needs to have at least a somewhat productive year, because they're going to play him a lot and they're going to try to win, but also because of his contract just starting right now. Can he be a baller again? And he's got to do it also because that's very telling of what he'll be able to do when Tyrese Haliburton does come back. Like, what if he's just not a part of their plans at that time because aging does get to him? I don't really know what to make of this, because at some point it happens to every player. Age just gets you and you can't do it. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to him this year. In fact, I would bet against it. But it does. It has literally happened to every player for forever. So you wonder what TJ McConnell going into age 34 season. I think he turns 34 so late in the year that Basketball Reference will count this as his age 33 season, but he'll be 34 by the time the season ends. I wonder what he can do. I wonder how much he can fight off the aging, what it's going to look like for his spot on the team when Haliburton is back, and what it's going to look like for his spot on the team this coming season, where he will be relied on to handle the ball quite often, with Nembhard, without Nembhard, whatever his role may be. Speaking of, no good transition here. Let's talk about Tony Bradley, who does have more than 5 years of experience. And the questions about him are less about his on-court play and more about the roster spot that he currently has. Should he keep it? What are the considerations? Let's talk about his veteran question for the final segment of today's Locked On Pacers. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making it your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Cavs for listen number 2. What's going on with a different Central Division rival for the Pacers? Danny Cunningham will tell you about the team that has Tyrese Proctor and Lonzo Ball and no more Isaac Okoro, and they also have Larry Nance. They are maybe the favorites in the East. Okay, Tony Bradley. Getting more questions about him recently, which is kind of funny. So the reminder and or explainer, if this is your first time hearing about this, he had a non-guaranteed team option coming into this offseason. His contract is currently slightly above his minimum. I forgot it was non-guaranteed. I thought they would decline the team option, but they picked it up, but it's still non-guaranteed. They could cut him and even re-sign him to a cheaper deal. He is fighting certainly for his spot, right? Like that Chad Buchanan mentioned on Setting the Pace that they like would consider looking at guards. Like that would be something to think about, not like aggressively or actively, he said, but sure, it's something they could use. They only have 2 point guards right now. They also have 4 bigs. And he mentioned many times that spot being non-guaranteed, it could in theory be open. However, I've heard his name enough from Chad in that interview, from Rick when I talked to him, Rick Carlisle when I talked to him in Vegas, that makes me think, and logic dictates this, that he'll make it to training camp, right? Keep him around till then. Why not? You don't start counting against the cap till the regular season begins. That's why training camp has so many battles for guys to make the team, including Cole Swider and Kendall Brown last year, and the winner of that battle was nobody. So I think it's possible that Tony Bradley, in fact, if not almost certainly, that he will be on the Pacers come late September. And he'll be fighting for the 15th spot on the team or to prove that he should be the third center or whatever that may be. Fully non-guaranteed contract. And it doesn't become guaranteed till January, which is actually kind of telling. So before I talk about some other kind of stuff going on with him, I think that is the first thing to note is nothing becomes guaranteed. He just gets a prorated portion of his salary as a cap hit every day. Until January when his deal becomes fully guaranteed. That's like perfect timing for the Pacers, who can then spend the first 2-3 months of the season figuring out, okay, do they really need 4 centers? Right? Is Wiseman enough of a third guy, or if he plays so well, he's one of the top 2, do they have enough with their top 3 to cover for the fact that 2 of those top 3 are coming off of Achilles tears? Right? If training camp starts and Jackson looks awesome and Wiseman looks ready to go, Tony Bradley's utility is less needed. Are those guys ready to play back-to-backs when the season starts? Who knows? By January, the Pacers should know how effective Jackson or Wiseman are, what the Pacers center rotation is. Can those guys play back-to-backs at that point? Well, how many minutes make sense for them? Do they actually need a 4th center? They should know that by that point of the season. So there is a chance that Bradley's on the team just like as a just in case. Yep, why not? We might need a center. As the Pacers, they let Enrique Freeman go. So even though he might have like the most difficult path to minutes of anyone currently under contract with the Pacers, there is an argument for him to stick around even into the season, especially now that the Freeman situation is settled. That doesn't look like a thing that's going to happen. But you still wonder about his future because of that non-guaranteed deal. Will he make the team? Would they rather have a point guard? What's all going on here? Because the pro of a non-guaranteed deal is like, pretend the Pacers are trading someone who is the easiest salary to do this with? Okay, I'm not saying to trade Aaron Nesmith. I'm using Aaron Nesmith as an example because his salary is easy. Aaron Nesmith's salary is $11 million this year. If the Pacers wanted to trade Aaron Nesmith for a player making $12 million, they could do that. That's legal. Or they could trade Aaron Nesmith and then guarantee $1 million of Tony Bradley's salary. And now they're doing an even salary trade, and the Pacers don't get hard capped at the first apron, right? And then Tony Bradley gets $1 million guaranteed that he didn't previously have. Like it could be used as salary matching. Right? Trading Aaron Nesmith for an $18.6 million player is not possible, but if they include a certain amount of guaranteed money on Tony Bradley, they could do it. Right? That's like Vasilije Micic got money guaranteed on his deal to be traded for, I can't remember how he got to for Mark Williams, and then again for Pat Connaughton, and then he took a buyout, right? Like all these guys on the Knicks who got signed and traded in that Karl Anthony Towns 3-team trade, they got guaranteed money to be a part of salary matching, right? That is in theory a thing that is relevant for Tony Bradley till the season starts and even into the season, right? The Pacers made a trade in December before the guarantee deadline last year. I'm not saying they will again. That's really atypical. Their situation kind of mandated they move as fast as possible. But that is the big pro of a non-guaranteed deal, is that those options exist until the season gets going. So what's going on with the question for Tony Bradley is, does he have an actual case to make the team? I would say, yeah, he does, right? Because of their 2 other centers being in the situation that they're in, there is a real reason for them to keep Tony Bradley for like basketball reasons, not just trade salary ballast like I just described. he could be their fourth center, but actually on some nights be their third center if it's a back-to-back, and they're one injury away from needing him on those nights, and like centers get hurt more than any other position. There's actually a basketball reason. And he's not a bad player. Like he played for them in the playoffs and the finals, and I was like, yeah, he should. I mean, he's a better rebounder against these Hartenstein groups or against these Mitchell Robinson groups, and he gave them different things than Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant was probably better on balance for the playoffs, had some great closeout games. All that to say, yeah, there's a real basketball spot for Tony Bradley to start the season. But I find it hard to believe that they would get to January 1st, basically right around the league-wide cutdown date, and they'd be like, yes, Tony Bradley still has a clear basketball role at that point. That would be the time where I'd think that they would prefer a roster spot and flexibility to do something else, because he's clearly center 404 on the depth chart, and you would know how much you need him and all that kind of stuff by that time. So that is the Tony Bradley situation. If you think he should just not be on the team in camp, it's a waste of a body, great. They could cut him for no penalty right now, but that would be stupid. They could do that same thing right before the season and have the same outcome. In fact, they could even waive him on his current non-guaranteed deal and then re-sign him to a cheaper, also non-guaranteed deal and just have his cap hit per day be smaller. That's like not an unreasonable thing to do. That would be very confusing to fans, and I would have to explain it if they did it. It doesn't matter. So yes, there are real reasons for Tony Bradley to potentially be on the team, and there are real reasons he is still on the team right now as a result. Like this is why, if you're him, you want a 2-year deal when he signed with the Pacers last year. Even though the second year had a team option with a non-guarantee, he has a chance to make more money because of the way his contract worked out and the way the Pacers offseason just kind of fell into his lap of success. In terms of actual basketball questions for Tony Bradley, the problem with him is he's played 7 seasons, right? And so obviously with McConnell and Siakam, they could be thrust into different roles or different age brackets. Like Tony Bradley's not going to be in a new role. He's going to be a reserve center. He's 27. He shouldn't be changing his age. So there's not a lot of actual, like, is he suddenly going to be a whipping it 3-point shooter? Like he drilled that first corner 3 he took and everybody was like, oh, and then the second one was that one against the Wizards that hit the side of the backboard. Like I don't expect him to suddenly be a shooter. I think he's just going to be a heady rebounding big who can have some size on the interior on defense and pull Andrew Nembhard out of scraps with Rudy Gobert. And like, that's again, a fine player to have on your team, but I don't have a lot of basketball questions about him. My Tony Bradley questions are, is he going to be on the team? And what situation makes it make sense for him to be on the roster come opening night? Or do they just cut him? And is there a trade that materializes that makes it worth it for him to be involved in it? And then he'd get money that way. That's the Tony Bradley situation. I've actually gotten some questions about it. So perfect time to squeeze it in here. Maybe in the future, instead of making this about Daniel Tice, I can make it about Tony Bradley. Thank you for tuning in today. I am not in Indiana when this comes out. So next week, these are already also pre-recorded. There will be 2 mailbag episodes and then the classic It's August episode of what moves can the Pacers still make, right? There's still some transactions that will be coming for them in this offseason. What are they? What do they have to consider? What does the rest of their summer mean for those moves? I talked about them some, but I want to really put a bow on every offseason topic until a move actually happens. So that's coming next Monday. Thank you all so much for listening today and throughout July. We made it through the free agency month. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony R. East. This podcast is at Locked On Pacers on both Twitter and Instagram. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you very soon.